Grip socks are great, and now they're even better with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Better fit, moisture wicking, amazing comfort, and all the extra grip you need. Choose from 10 different colors for just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
One brand that I can honestly say I haven't been overly impressed with in recent years is Umbro, but inside this box I have their latest boots that I think are a significant improvement over the model they replace. However, there is one major downside. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the brand new Umbro Tocco 3 Pro, a football boot that I think is a gigantic improvement over the Tocco 2 that it replaces, carrying over the same sole plate and stud pattern, but definitely going in a more traditional direction as far as the upper is concerned. It combines leather as well as a microfiber synthetic material through the midfoot. The leather itself is unspecified, so I can only assume it's not kangaroo leather because that tends to be detailed whenever it is kangaroo leather. And as far as tech is concerned, the main feature that you're going to find about this football boot is a composite based fabric material that has been incorporated to the underside of the leather for benefits that are, I would argue, a little bit questionable, all for the very humble price tag of $300. And by humble, I mean twice as expensive as they probably should be. And I'm not joking either. You can see it here right on the box, MSRP 300 USD. So as much as I'd like to praise Umbro for making what I would argue is one of their better football boots in the last several years, and as much as I do know that the pricing structure for Umbro does fluctuate quite a bit from country to country, if we're talking about the US market specifically, I don't see how they justified retailing these for $300, and I don't see who in their right mind is going to pay anywhere near that much for the Umbro Tocco 3 Pro. In other words, is there any chance that these are worth $70 more than the Nike Tiempo Legend 9 Elite or Adidas Copa Pure Point 1? We're going to go over all the details of the Tocco 3 Pro, break down some of the, I would argue, poorly explained technology. I'll cover some of my issues in regards to quality that I've found, and of course, we'll take a look at how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, and if you are interested in a pair for yourself, as of right now, they're not actually available anywhere as far as I can see, but as soon as they are available, if you check out that first link down below, you'll be able to pick up the Tocco 3 Pro for $300 or possibly less. Like I said, they're not available anywhere yet. And as always, if you guys enjoy these brutally honest reviews, drop a like on the video and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2023. So, first things first, the upper, where I think it's safe to say that Umbro have not done anything groundbreaking as far as the breakdown of material is concerned, in that you can see that there is leather through the forefoot and toe box area. I do like the fact that it does flow fairly deep into the midfoot on the medial side. That leather is reinforced by stitching, and then everything back of the leather is a microfiber synthetic material for the sake of lockdown, structure, and overall responsiveness. With laces running directly down the middle, you have a standard U-throat construction with a standalone tongue, making for putting these on and taking them off being significantly easier than the average one-piece upper football boot, and really good adjustability and kind of just customizing the fit of the boot when you tie the laces tight. I know that everybody likes the one-piece upper for the lack of overlapping materials, but this traditional construction really does make for a great fit, which is easily the biggest improvement of the Tocco 3 over the Tocco 2, in that the fit of the Tocco 2 was just shocking. These fit incredibly well. To get a little more specific, the leather itself, like I mentioned, is not specified anywhere on Umbro's website, which leads me to believe that it's a cow skin or a calf skin type material, because if it was kangaroo leather, I feel like they would have mentioned it. Nonetheless, the quality and thickness of the leather, I would say, is pretty average for a high-end football boot, but arguably something that could be found on a mid-level football boot for, again, significantly less money than the $300 asking price, being that this is pretty well the most expensive leather football boot in the traditional category. I think this is easily the worst quality leather on offer considering the price. So from a value for money perspective, there's not a lot of value to be had here, but there is one key piece of technology that Umbro is touting with this leather football boot that you won't get with any other, and that is the Dyneema fabric that lines the underside, which is so thin it's almost impossible for me to show you, but if you can see that little bit of white material in the split of the leather along the side, that's the fabric we're talking about. And sorry for the notes, but I kind of needed to explain what exactly is happening here. Dyneema fabric is a composite non-woven fabric material that's actually quite expensive if you look it up, which claims to be 15 times stronger than steel, with the highest tear and tensile strength of any competing fabric on a weight by weight and thickness basis. And here's a little example of what this fabric looks like. It's so thin, it's borderline translucent. The question in my mind now becomes, what's the benefit of having this fabric underneath the leather on the Tocco 3 Pro? And it's at this point where I really question, I don't know. I suppose that if you got stepped on by somebody wearing really sharp studs where an upper could tear, although I'd say that's a pretty rare event to happen these days, that lining material could prevent the upper from tearing, or at least the liner from tearing, because I think the leather would tear, because in theory, it's technically stronger than the leather, but I don't really view that as a realistic benefit to paying $300 for these, and from a protection standpoint, because it's so thin, it's not really providing any protection. Getting stepped on in these feels like any other pair of leather football boots, where granted, they're not as thin as some of the speed boot options out there, but if you get stepped on, it's still gonna hurt. And then as far as the waterproofing aspect is concerned, I'm sure it does its part. However, the leather is on the surface, so it can still absorb that moisture. And as far as keeping your feet dry is concerned, because of the standard U-throat construction, you now have these gaps along either side of the lacing system for water to get in, where, again, your feet are gonna get wet. And if you look on the underside of the tongue, you can see it's actually lined in that same material as well. You can see it faintly through these perforations, but it's so thin and so pliable that, again, I really question what benefit it's truly offering. In other words, I think it's a really cool idea, but its implementation is kind of useless. As for the synthetic part of the upper, they don't specify that it's also backed by this Dyneema fabric material, so I'm assuming it's not. And the material itself that they have used here does feel okay from a structure standpoint. It's got a good balance of being structurally sound but still pliable and doesn't hurt the comfort of the football boot. It flows nicely with what is definitely a softer material in the leather through the forefoot and toe box area, but I would argue that the texture on the surface and certainly the appearance of it does seem a little bit cheap. It seems like something you'd expect to find on a much less expensive takedown model and not something that retails for $300. But all in all, if you're looking for that traditional padded leather sensation on the ball, this definitely provides that in a way that I would say is very positive. This is a pair of football boots that I would be happy to wear, but for $300, is it the best leather football boot experience? Far from it. Moving to the rear, you're going to find what is very much a traditional low-cut construction and design with an internal plastic heel counter, a really soft microfiber heel liner with these little grip dots in blue that are made from like a rubbery silicone material to prevent your heel from sliding. All of that feels really good, and I like the shaping that they've gone for here. Then the insole, fully removable. I'll give you guys a quick look at that. Very straightforward in terms of just being a mesh liner on the surface and then being made from this really thin layer of what is very spongy black foam. As for the sole plate and stud pattern, you're going to find their P-Bax Control Plus setup, which is exactly what was found on the previous generation Tocco. It's a dual density P-Bax plastic material with this kind of stiffener bar in this Y shape through the midfoot and heel, and then it kind of runs along the edges of the forefoot and toe box area, stiffening up that part of the sole plate, where admittedly this feels a lot stiffer in hand than it does on feet, where I feel like it flexes pretty naturally. But if you want something that has a little bit of a firmer feel underfoot in terms of how it moves, this definitely has that. No complaints from me there. And then as far as the stud pattern is concerned, you're going to find what is a very traditional and kind of normal football boot setup. Similar layout to what you're going to find from Adidas in terms of having the 4 studs in the heel and then the 3 on either side of the forefoot, 1 support stud in the middle, 1 little kind of toe pick bladed stud, pretty much all conical in shape as you can see. But I did mention some quality control issues where if you look at this stud in particular, it's a little bit like warped and wonky. And it's only like that on the right boot, because if you look at the left boot, it's perfectly straight. And I'm sure they're not all like this. I more than likely just have a bad pair, but you really don't expect to see that with any football boots, let alone ones that retail for $300. Nonetheless, the sole plate and stud pattern as a whole, while I don't think it stands out against pretty much anything on the market right now, it does get the job done if you're looking for something with more of that traditional feel from both a flex and traction standpoint. Which brings us to the weight, where I thought it'd be fun to compare the Tocco 3 Pro to one of its main competitors in the Tiempo Legend 9 Elite. just to see exactly what the difference is. Both in the same size, 9.5 US. We'll start off with the Tiempos, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.45 ounces, the equivalent of 211 grams. Remember those numbers. Change the scale back to ounces, and we'll throw on the Umbros, where you can see that they weigh in at 7.55 ounces, the equivalent of 214 grams. So in terms of actual weight, the Tiempo is technically 3 grams lighter, which is basically an insignificant amount of weight. These are almost identical. The main difference here is that these have more leather, they have kangaroo leather, better quality leather, and are $70 less. The fit and feel on feet is really my favorite aspect of the Tocco 3 Pro. Like I said, the Tocco 2 was one of the worst fitting football boots I've tried as far as top end models go in the last couple of years. These fit really well, and that's because they've just gone very traditional with the overall shaping. It's a little bit more rounded through the toe box and forefoot area, and then when you go with that traditional central lacing system and U-throat construction, you just end up with a boot that wraps your foot really nicely when you tie the laces tight. The feel of the sole plate underfoot is solid. The grip and shaping of the heel liner feels really good as well. The heel is slightly shallower than I would like it to be, but not detrimentally so. And in general, I just find them to be very comfortable football boots. The leather is soft as you'd expect it to be. The microfiber material through the midfoot feels nice as well. And I just don't really have much in the way of complaints in regards to fit and overall comfort. From a width perspective, they have decent width to them, where as long as you don't have ridiculously wide feet, I think these are going to be suitable for most people. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US. So if you are looking to get a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, I actually really like the Umbro Tocco 3 Pro. It's legitimately a pair of football boots that I would be happy to play in. However, the $300 price tag is just completely and entirely unjustifiable. I don't care who you are. Even if you're the biggest fan of Umbro football boots, you would be silly to pay $300 for these. And to be brutally honest, even at $200, I don't think I'd be able to justify these over $230 for the Nike or Adidas alternatives. I just think both of those football boots are significantly better in several different areas than the Tocco 3 Pro. Realistically, this in my eyes is a $150 football boot, and at that retail price, they are totally justified. But for $300, Umbro's just, they're dreaming. They're solid football boots with definite room for improvement, but with that $300 price tag, they're simply just not gonna have a chance.